All right, welcome back, folks, to a game between the well-known and those seeking to be known, as we have got Capoch versus RecoN. Capoch, an Argentinian Age of Empires 2 player that really needs no introduction to the scene. Meanwhile, RecoN, he could do with a few intros himself, although he is known amongst the smaller ones. RecoN, for those that are unfamiliar, British Age of Empires 2 mythology and online player. I think he was also part of the Age of Empires online balancing team, or like the advisory team that was made up in the community to consult with the devs. So this guy has a lot of experience in the RTS genre. He just hasn't really had the opportunity to expose himself to that big chunk of earnings, right? That let me wipe my ass with $50 bills type prize pool earnings. Capoch, on the other hand, a little bit more established, well-known figure in the SA community that has been around in Age of Empires 2 for, how long has it been now? Long time, guys. So he was there from kind of the get-go. He was involved in super early tournaments back in like 2001, 2007, and then he got involved again more recently as the years went on. But yeah, it looks like he's really trying to like get back into his stride and maybe make it back into a bit of a competitive scene in Age of Empires 4. So excited to see this. In terms of matchups, we haven't even gotten to that yet, have we? Which is going to be an interesting one. It's blue on blue, and that doesn't mean it's friendly fire like in the American military terms. It's actually Mongols versus France, and RecoN in the red as the Mongols, Capoch in the blue as France. Opening-wise, nothing too unexpected here. Nothing rushy coming out from RecoN just yet. He has begun constructing the Uvu, and he has got a nice placement between berry bushes, goats, and wood, not really prioritizing the gold, which is further off at this stage. Meanwhile, when we look at the opening point for Capoch, his gold vein is a little bit far away from his starting point, but the berry bush makes up for it. It's a reasonably close one. Wood line is fairly close as well, so production of villagers into getting on their allocated roles, especially when it comes to wood early, is good. I think this type of spawn, you would have probably liked your gold vein to be a smidge closer if you could have had it that way, mainly because as France, you're looking for food and gold in Tech 2 more than anything else. You don't really care about wood that much until you make the transition into archers. Now, that would explain France's opening. I'm curious to know what RecoN's is going to be. He's already behind on food and gold gathering, which is a little bit worrisome, so he's going to be behind on the tech up. But remember, you can actually match the quantity of units quite fast as the Mongols, due to the fact that you have access to the Uvu that can double the unit production for a cost of stone, right? So we'll see how that comes into effect. You can already see the scouting coming out from Capoch. This is moving across the map to see if his opponent is going for a rush play, so really heads-up play from him. Just always important to get that info. And you can see similar from RecoN as he's wrapping around, not only gathering the sheep that are nearby to Capoch, utilizing the fact that apparently these weren't collected by his own scout, so he must be on my side of the map. He's then also going to get info scouting on what's happening, see the school cavalry is already going up, and then probably pivot into getting a military building. And has there been a tech up? No, there's still no tech, so RecoN's still short. I feel like he's... What happened here? It feels like he's slightly behind where he should be on the food front. I didn't see just how long he moved the TC. I don't think it wasn't more than a few seconds, though, so he shouldn't really be far behind. So the Deer Stone is now going to be built. Deer Stone's really good on the defensive against the rush of knights, remember? Because you can go for spearmen, and they'll get that yam speed boost, so they can somewhat negate the economical damage that a series of knights can be committed with from Capoch. So we'll see if that actually comes into fruition. We'll see if he's going to go for some type of rush of his own. He is going to the barracks, which suggests to me that this is a very defensive opening for RecoN. And it'll be intriguing to me into whether he tries to double TC as a result of this. Hasn't really got many people committed on the wood line just yet, but sometimes when I see this type of opening, I feel like that's the way the Mongol player wants to go. The only difference is when it's up against France, I'm not the biggest fan of it because of how much exposed eco you could have. Then again, with these TCs, remember, because you can move them around, you can actually keep them super tight-knit, covering each other and protecting each other, and then shift them slightly to just make more use of them in terms of as a resource drop-off point with new wood lines and new gold supplies and food intakes, right? So tech up's going to be there. Capoch beats him to the punchline. Not by that much, though, in fairness. With 4 workers on this, it's going to be about probably 30 seconds max behind. That is going to be 1 extra night production, though, for Capoch. Keep in mind, it's not the end of the world because he is committing to some early spearmen, most likely, on the Mongols. He will be able to get them now if he wants to, and you see, there you go. Double spearmen. So he'll be able to even out what the night production is of Capoch. Capoch, as a result, might end up very quickly switching, and there it is. Yeah, I love this read. Capoch understands that because he hasn't seen any sort of horsemen, scouts, harassment of any kind in his base, the opening that makes the most sense to the Mongol player is going to be spearmen. So he wants to get 2, 3, maybe 4 knights, and then he wants to cut it off there and overwhelm his opponent with archers after he forces him to commit. Because the opening moves in this situation, considering he hasn't seen any horsemen, what is likely to come out of RecoN is one of 2 things. Spearmen, Magadai. Either way, archers is the solution, right? Archers get bonus damage against the spearmen, and also archers trade well against the Magadai because while the Magadai are dynamic units, keep in mind that they cost a vast amount more gold, well, not gold, sorry, food, than the archers. I think it's about 3 times the amount, and of course you have to commit some gold. So Magadai can be an incredibly costly investment compared to these archers. And that's where the efficient value will come out. That being said, I would love to see Capoch get his eco up to a point where he supports 2 archery rangers just to make sure he reaches that critical mass quickly before there's too many spears for him to actually repel at all. And yeah, these spears are at least repelling people off the gold line, but this is also info again. Capoch now knows that there's not actually a heavy commitment onto gold, so there's no intentions out of RecoN to quick tech up. In fact, you can see right now, if anything, RecoN, his resource situation is a bit rough. I mean, he's started to generate some sheep in his base, having built the pasture. Was that in range? No, that wasn't in range to the Uvu, so it's not quicker. That's a bit rough. Remember, if you build pastures near the Uvus, they do come out quicker. But he's going to commit to the archery range, so here's the transition. Now, the question is whether it's going to be regular archers, or as I like to call them, normie archers, or it's going to be Magadai. I would like to see normie archers in this situation. I think if you go for Magadai, you're going to be in trouble. The problem he has right now is he only sees knights. He doesn't see archers. His Khan might have scouted out this archery range now, so maybe he pivots and doesn't think Magadai just goes archers. So we'll just have to see what the move is once he eventually gets this actually built. Because the spearmen will repel the knights, but not before they disrupt the build speed on the stable. And of course, this is just, I mean, you just love life as France. This is why France is so annoying and why a lot of people think this should be nerfed. It's actually when you can actually genuinely see it when you watch the opening of the game from both sides, right? RecoN has to do a lot more. He has to move all these units around. He has to repel forces. He has to defend his eco constantly. Have a look in Capoch space right now. Look how far out and undefended these villages are. Compare it to what RecoN has done right now. Now, that's not to say that this is like a give all, take all. This is exactly how it is 900,000 games out of a, 900,001. But this is, I'd say, the majority of games. Unless you're up against another hyper-rushing nation, which Mongols potentially can do, but a lot of nations can't, such as, England. England's, like we always talk about, as a static rush nation. You're not going to be threatened on your eco front anytime soon, right? Talk about other factions. HRE aren't going to threaten your eco line soon. Abbasid Dynasty don't often threaten your eco line in the early game. Delhi don't threaten your eco line in the other game. So that's what kind of makes France really frustrating to deal with. Not only is it cheaper for them to, or quicker rather for them to get villages out, right? And they get these economical bonuses, but their economy doesn't need to be protected the same way that a lot of opponents of French players do. Now, using the Stealth Forest to his advantage, so Capoch doesn't want to reveal his hand just yet that he's in on archers. And this is bad for RecoN if he reads it wrong. But he isn't. This is actually really well played. He's reading it perfectly. So he's going into this horseman, right, because he went stables. And then he'll have a solution to the archers. And remember, there'll be no solution from France, because what did we talk about? What was the thing that French players don't like doing? They don't like going for barracks. Point me to a replay of a high-level player where they build barracks in the first 10 minutes. And I will laugh at you, yell fake news in my best Trump voice possible, and say it never happened. Only unlike him, this wouldn't be fake news, because I just don't see it. I never see it. I never see French opener involving racks. Ever. I feel like I just need to keep emphasizing. Never, ever, ever. Because it's not like you benefit the same way as like England or HRE do, right? You don't have this pivot of like, oh, I'll go for men-at-arms then instead. That's not there. Now, keep in mind, if he does go back to producing knights, he will have the advantage. But the problem is these horsemen are coming out so quick that he's not going to start producing knights again fast enough to maintain, right? So between the spears and the horsemen, he's going to have an issue protecting his archer lines. But look at the commitment. Capoch, this is so heavy an investment this stage in the game. He's actually built a battering ram and he's stacked inside it. That was a mistake, as you can see, so he backs out of it. But he has committed to the battering ram. So this is a heavy wood investment. Capoch still has plenty in surplus, though, because of the amount of people in his eco line on wood right now. And meanwhile, RecoN has committed heavily to the gold. He almost has enough, so he can just drop off this gold, and he would be fine. But he fails to drop it off. So he's going to be sniped out on the Villi count, and he doesn't even get enough to go for a tech up if he wants to now try and turtle for it. But with the horsemen charging out, they will look to catch up with the archers, and the spears join in as well, so the knight's going to have to back away. Speed boost to try and get them in deeper and faster here. So he's wrapping around, and this means he'll get the favorable trade up against Capoch here. As he wraps around the back and cuts off their escape, now Capoch just has to get the best trades he can. Horseman will chase down. Spearman just causing a lot of havoc for the knights. They're going to back away. Horseman continue to commit, and they're going to wrap around again. So almost all of these archers are going to fall. Meanwhile, in the base, I believe there are more units being spammed out. Yeah, more spearmen coming, more horsemen as well. And this is the cool thing. The way he keeps splitting this, like, he knows he's not killing the knights, right? So he doesn't even hard commit into the knights. He just knows that he can kill the unit, even if it takes a second salvo, right? That can't heal, which is these archers. Meanwhile, Chivalry slowly kicking in for Capoch. This also did buy a little bit of time to rebuild because he pushed him so far away. So he has got melee units again. He's going to need to solve this battering ram, and he has to reveal the villagers to do so. So these are going to get sniped out by the archers. Luckily, he got rid of enough of these archers that it's not an amassment that would insta-kill each of these villagers, as you can see. And that might just stop the battering ram siege, or cause Capoch to double down. I actually thought he'd back off and maybe try to tech up. But then again, I think he's not seeing enough out of RecoN that he's convinced that he should back off, right? If RecoN had, you know, doubled down on the speed of unit production, built another, like, military building, which he has now found in the stables, and he was, like, spamming out non-stop these spearmen, then I think in that situation, Capoch backs off and then techs up himself. But you can see what has happened as a result of this is Capoch had to keep the pressure up because RecoN goes for the tech up instead. And he's building a step redoubt. This step redoubt will be incredibly valuable because remember, you'll be gaining gold like you're just milking it out of thin air, right? I don't even know how that works. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's you just make the jerking kind of motion in midair and gold just appears. Which if you do in public without explanation is probably going to look like you're just, you know, making jerk off symbols now that I think about it. But the point is this. Gold. Lots and lots of gold. Okay, you guys have seen Austin Powers. That's not too boomer, right? Mongol players be like, I like gold. I love the feel of it, the touch of it, the smell of it. They're even going to have their own Yoo-hoos painted gold in a smelting accident in this step readout, which gives you 50% extra gold on drop-offs. And he's complete. So this is the all-in a moment. Well, not all-in, but shall we say, if Capoch commits, he has to commit. He can't walk back. He actually has to get some serious damage into RecoN's base here to punish him for this greedy tech up. Problem is, there's enough static defenses that you see the move from RecoN is to not respond. Instead, he's just going to try and wait out as long as he can, amass more forces, and then push him back. And there's not enough archers here that he's really threatened at range. Which means the advantage that France usually gets in their transition to ranged isn't being achieved because of that early trade, that earlier on trade that RecoN committed, where he got rid of most of the archer army. Outpost almost down. We'll have to commit into the rams now, but doesn't want to too long. There's just too many knights right now. Battering rams will go back in as they see there's a priority of military units on military units. He uses the battering rams to snipe out that outpost. So the Villies will not charge out to deal with the battering rams. And number advantage and quality advantage, in fact, is on Capoch's side. So you can already see how quickly RecoN's losing the troops. But this should be buying time to get the Lancers out. This is where he transitions. And remember, these Lancers are stronger because they were talking raw knights. These are early troops. They're not teched up. And with that, actually, with the villagers involved as well, it's created enough bodies that he's able to wrap around, snipe one of the battering rams, and prevent the archers from making good trades. And now with the Lancers out, even if he tries to snipe them, this is not going to end well for Capoch. More Lancers coming. Horseman's still not dealt with. He'll back up for the moment. He's happy he's repelled him. And he should be happy. Capoch has shown his hand, right? He's continued to invest in feudal. He's continued to build units. So he has to know that RecoN isn't teching up. Because if he was, you wouldn't see this trickle in of knights that continues to appear. You wouldn't have seen this heavy commitment to battering rams that he committed to. And now with his step redoubt just down right in front of him, smugly staring him in the face, Capoch is going to understand how big the eco difference is. And meanwhile, Capoch, no response, hasn't built, in terms of eco at least, he hasn't built a second TC, right? He's invested fully in this feudal. He has at least spread out, so this is the thing we talked about before. The worrying and scary part, the transition for RecoN now, that could get scary, is his eco spread. Because soon, the eco under his nose is going to dry up. And that's when he'll have to move. Because that's the other thing. This step readout, yes, it gives you so much gold so fast. But when you want to get all that gold as quickly as possible, right? Which is what he's doing. And that's when you maybe expose your eco lines, is when you move out for these new veins. And in terms of where they are, one's a little bit further back. This one's really out in no man's land from his perspective right now. And this gold vein near the sacred site is too risky. So that's probably the next move Capoch looks for. He wants to find a way to dent the eco of RecoN, where it's getting the most value. The problem is he's never going to be able to force these people out from under the TC due to the passages, right? Passages are so powerful in this type of game. And that's why he continues to build them up. Woodline is still good, by the way. He's barely used any wood, remember, the way he played this. Because RecoN didn't go for a second TC, there wasn't this overwhelming investment into a wooden structure, right? So he actually hasn't had that many people on Woodline. He hasn't committed that much of the resource, which means that he has plenty of safe wood left for at least several minutes now. That being said, Uvu is now depleted, and he has used all these resources up. So this is a potential exposure as if he now moves the Uvu, which he's going to want to do because he's practically out of stone. Prayer tent also being built. So he just wants to continue to be a greedy boy. Right now, look at the comparison. RecoN is gathering almost 3 times the gold that Capoch is. And he says, that's not enough. No, you know, my house is made out of gold. My chairs are made out of gold. My children are made out of gold. But I really want a family dog made out of gold. And I can get that if I just get a few shamans and they go collect some mystical relics that people randomly will turn up to our temple and donate gold to for no reason imaginable. So, small Lancer army. Moving out a little bit. Capoch did renew his knights, but this also, as a result, has slowed down his tech up. He did get there in the end, as you can see, now up at 3, and has got the Royal Institute. So this is where he can make a comeback, because the problem I don't like is, like, RecoN, this army got rebuilt, but it didn't get rebuilt quick enough that he's able to utilize it aggressively, right? He's going to move it across now, but I don't know if this is going to work out. There is a potentially exposed eco line, as this wood line is going to be cleared up soon, but it's going to be scouted so early because of Capoch's base spread that he won't be able to get in to do some serious damage. Instead, he's going to take some casualties, and he has to get out before the knights arrive. So, going to back up the Lancers. I think this play was too soon. I think, if anything, RecoN should have continued to build a Lancer army to, like, maybe 12, 15. Because then Capoch wouldn't have had the info of that. And by the time he did, he would have probably stopped building knights at the 10 mark. Now, Capoch can continue to build knights and continue to just try and overwhelm because he realizes that there's starting to be a treacle of Lancers committed to by RecoN on the Mongol side. Still no Uvu movement either. And once again, valuable information. Look at what Capoch has gained here. These knights have continued to scout out this. So he may have just identified that Uvu's dried up, which means there's no double unit production, which means that Capoch isn't going to be overwhelmed or outnumbered by his Mongol opponent now. And Lancer's charging out. Knights engage. Try and cycle a bit. Remember, they get that bonus damage initially after the charge. And the archers are focusing down the spearmen. There isn't that many of them, but there might be enough to make the difference here. More Lancers are coming in, but these Knights are trading favorably now. But they have the numerical advantage against the Lancers. He didn't reach the critical mass of Lancers yet. Dragging them back. Lancers do expose the archers, but remember, the archers, they're giving their life to get rid of all the spearmen. Most of the spearmen are gone. In fact, all of them. They're trickling in new ones, but with the Knight advantage now, he'll burn through these Lancers, and then Capoch is the one with a standing military. New replenishment of Lancers in. Archers still haven't been addressed, and they're sniping out the Villies as well. Wow. So, this is the rough part, right? All these injured Knights, and he can't go after the archers because he has to snipe out whatever Knights he can now before they start to get chivalry kicking in. That's why he didn't go after the remaining archers. He'll try it now, but he could get wrapped on if he's not careful. So Lancers charge in. Remember, you're fighting under Yam speed bonus, which is why they are able to keep chasing against the Lancers, against the Knights, rather. That's what makes Yam so powerful, by the way. The fact it also lasts so long after you leave the influence of Yam is insane. I think that's probably going to get nerfed, along with the ridiculous TC rushing, of course. Yeah, renewed force. Step readout's moving out. So RecoN actually kind of has to commit to defending this now. He doesn't have the Yam benefit anymore because he's been out of the buff range too long. So he won't be able to skirt and chase down these knights as efficiently, but he does have the number advantage, which he's putting to good use right now. Almost snipes out the knight. Needs one more hit. The calm might actually get him. Yep, snipes him down. New TC going down for Capoch, so he's finally starting to move up here, and he's going straight in for the stone. So he's looking to now TC boom up at a much later point, but he knows that RecoN hasn't committed there, right? RecoN is going to stay on one TC almost indefinitely now. Really interesting move by Capoch. I love the way he's utilizing the rest of the map to do this. I just don't know if this is the right timing when your opponent was pushing him with Lancers. He will eventually get rid of this force, but it might cost him some of his eco to do so. So Lancers back away due to the Knights again. And now just building archery ranges. So he's committing in. He understands what he needs. He's in Castle Age, right? So this is where you just build crossbowmen, and the Lancers are completely just nullified. Really scary moment now for RecoN. And RecoN, because he's committed a lot into Lancers at this stage, won't have an imp timing. And also this TC with the Archer Rangers now just securing even more berry bushes. Really well played by him. Now he'll be able to boom up on the eco front compared to RecoN. They were more or less, yeah, with just 7 villages difference, so they're pretty tight-knit up to this point. But this is where the switch-up will be noticeable. Especially when he knows that things like Deerstone's been committed to, there's no kind of trade going on right now for RecoN. It means that RecoN really is now in on a Castle Age win. I don't see RecoN pulling this out to Imp Age. I think if he tries to stagnate, well, stalemate, but really, in my opinion, it would be more stagnant than stalemate, into an Imp Age timing, I do genuinely believe Capoch will win this game. Because I think if you reach this Imp Age situation, right, with the Arbors already starting to come out, he'll reach a critical mass that will counter out the Lancers. And Lancers really are your only real play in this matchup and the way things are played out against a French player, right, in the Castle Age. So really needs to find value now. Needs Siege, I think. Surely you have to anticipate your opponent's going to Arbors. They always go Arbors, right? They always go for this crossbowman. So after you saw the archers didn't continue to trickle in, you know he's like tearing up. You've wholly committed to Lancers. But one Mangonel would genuinely make the difference in a fight against the Arbors. And you shouldn't worry about Knights flanking and sniping it, because if you have a critical mass of Lancers that he has, there is no way in hell these Knights are going to be able to run past you and ignore you unless they want to lose half their number in the initial bout before they even reach a Mangonel. At which stage, it's still a good trade, because then you can just run towards his crossbow line, right? But I don't really know how much of this new info was trickled into RecoN. I mean, like I said, instinctively, you know French players will make this switch up into crossbows, right? Especially once they've seen you do Lancers. But he actually doesn't have any scouting info on this. So to him, it would be just an instinctual play and nothing else. So Deerstone moves up, gives the Yam movement speed, charges straight in. Going to find a few villages for his trouble. And no response out of Capoch. No response you can have, really. There's the Arbors now. They get some good shots off. But remember, you move so fast, you can completely back away. That is a decent start, but I think RecoN needs like 3 more of those. If he doesn't put a significant dent in Capoch's eco, then RecoN is going to lose the next big military engagement. Like, how many is he up to? Lancers 19. Where is the rest of the Knights for Capoch? Free? He sent free over here? Really? Okay, this keep is critical. If RecoN lets Capoch put this keep up, I think he's in major trouble. And that's why he charges in. Lancers push them back. They have the number advantage right now, and they can wrap on this complete villager force and just wipe them out. They'll try and back up in the TC, but half of them are going to be lost before they get there. And I think you just continue in now. You're kind of in for a penny, in for a pound at this stage. He's got more Lancers trickling in, but you cannot allow this keep to go down under any situation or any circumstance. The problem is he hasn't reached the Arbors. He's trying to go for the crossbows now, and with the Spearman in, this will do some decent damage. He might actually get through all the crossbows if he keeps up this commitment. But the Yam speed boost has been lost, so he's not able to stay on top of them 24/7. That being said, decent damage done to the crossbows, and the primary line of Lancers are hitting into that keep now. I'm worried he's going to lose his military force here, though. No siege weapons. Finally, he has a spring wall coming up. But even though you put a dent into France, France has more static defenses right now. Like, how do you get through the rest of these? Lancers are charging in again. They renewed the speed boost. They did get under range of the Deerstone. And that's the critical detail. If he can keep baiting, switching this back and forth towards the Deerstone, he can then chase in onto the crossbowman every time. The problem is he's definitely going to get casualties because he has to get rid of the keep. And crossbow shoot. Yam speed's still on them. They're charging in towards the crossbows. They will clash here, and they'll get several of these crossbowmen in the engagement. He's still pulling them back, and it looks like he'll be able to clean up the rest of these Lancers, actually. One by one, they have their numbers now to clean them up. The Spearmen are rushing in, so that'll force a further back, but now you're under multiple TCs and multiple towers. This could get a little bit dicey. RecoN, he actually has to just take whatever he can now. There is no retreat option anymore. You're in for not just the pound, you're in for the $100, right? Like, if you try to run away now, you'll lose all these Lancers on the retreat. So he'll split up the forces, make the best of the situation, and we'll keep the maintained force alive. But he did lose probably like a third of the contingent, just keeping the reinforcing crossbows from getting involved in the fight again. That did buy time for a Mangonel, but still, no true siege unit answer to the keep just yet. That being said, Outpost is shooting out some decent shots. Decent amount of troops still remaining. Continues to trickle in. Capoch, has Capoch got a solution? He's dried up on the gold. He really needs more gold right now. I actually think RecoN's coming out ahead now. Like, RecoN kept his gold up, right? That's the difference. This is why it was so important to get rid of this keep, because it protected the step redoubt and protected his gold supply. Meanwhile, where's the gold intake for Capoch? He doesn't have any. He actually can't maintain the military force that would counter out what RecoN is doing right now, which is crossbows and knights, which costs, guess what, guys? Gold! And lots of it. Lots of it that he doesn't have. RecoN will burn this down. Capoch. I think he'll lose this TC. He calls it. I don't see where his gold expansion is. Yeah, look, it's going to get sniped out. RecoN already has Lancers in position, and this just might be what forces it from Capoch. Yeah, GG. Nothing left. Once the TC is getting sieged down, and once he sees that the expansion goal line cannot be built, Capoch knows when a game is done. He calls it out. He doesn't waste time. RecoN takes the victory of the Mongols.